My name is Daniel, and for months I carried a quiet ache inside me, an ache no one could see, but one I felt every single night. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't arguments. It was worse than that. It was silence. You see, I had always been the one to lean in, to pull Emily, my wife, closer. A kiss before bed, a hug in the kitchen, a brush of her hand while passing by. These were small things, gestures that once came naturally between us, like breathing. But slowly, almost without me noticing, they stopped being returned. Every time I tried, she turned away. If I leaned in for a kiss, she angled her face. If I wrapped my arms around her, she stiffened. Her shoulders would tense and her eyes. They always found the glow of her phone instead of mine. I'll never forget the night I truly felt the change. We were lying in bed. The room was dim, lit only by the orange street lamp outside. I reached for her, softly whispered her name. Emily. She rolled away. Not tonight, Daniel, she muttered. That was it. No fight, no explanation, no warmth, just nothing. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't try to win back her attention with more kisses, more hugs, more affection. I simply stopped insisting, stopped reaching, stopped forcing what clearly wasn't wanted. And that's where everything began to change. At first, the silence between us felt like a wall I couldn't climb. I thought Emily would be relieved that I had finally stopped reaching for her. And maybe she was for a few days. But soon, she started to notice. It began with the smallest things. When I walked past her in the hallway, I caught her eyes lingering on me a second too long. At dinner, when I barely spoke, she filled the silence with nervous chatter. One morning in the kitchen, her hand brushed against mine as I reached for the coffee pot. It should have been an accident, but it wasn't. She let it stay there for a moment, like she was testing the waters, and then came the questions. Daniel, are you okay? You've been quiet lately. Are you mad at me? Her tone was softer than it had been in months. Almost hesitant, I'd answer politely, briefly but without warmth. And that silence of mine, it unsettled her far more than my begging ever had. Soon, Emily began to seek me out. She'd sit next to me on the couch, brushing her shoulder against mine. She'd linger in the doorway when I was reading, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. At night, I felt her body edge closer to mine, as if the space between us had suddenly grown too wide for her to bear. And for the first time in a long time, it was her reaching for me. Part of me should have been happy. I should have felt relieved, grateful even. And I did, at least for a fleeting moment. That old ache of longing twisted into something that felt like cautious hope. Maybe she realized what we had lost. Maybe she finally wanted me again, but deep inside, another feeling began to grow. A whisper that unsettled me. Why now? Why only after I stopped? And that quiet question would soon lead me to the truth I never wanted to find. The truth came to me in the simplest, most ordinary moment. It was a Tuesday morning. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen as I prepared for work. Emily had left her phone on the counter while she went upstairs. Normally, I wouldn't even glance at it. I respected her privacy, or maybe I just never wanted to know what might be hiding there. But then, the screen lit up, a message flashed across the lock screen, and my world stopped. Can't wait to see you tonight. My chest tightened. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe I was misreading it. But my eyes went to the name beneath the text, Mark. My hands trembled. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stood frozen, staring at that glowing screen like it was a bomb about to explode. I didn't want to look further, but something stronger than fear pulled me in. I unlocked the phone, and there it was, thread after thread of messages, playful nicknames, inside jokes, promises of stolen nights, flirty emojis scattered like little knives stabbing into me. But the words that cut the deepest were the ones I recognized, phrases she once whispered to me in the dark, pet names she once reserved for me alone. Now written for him, I felt sick. My grip tightened on the phone until my knuckles turned white. The hot coffee in my other hand burned my skin, but I didn't even feel it. I just stood there, paralyzed, staring at the proof that my wife, the woman I had loved for years, was giving pieces of herself to someone else. Part of me wanted to storm upstairs, shove the phone in her face and demand an explanation. Part of me wanted to scream so loud that the whole neighborhood would hear, but another part, the quieter, more broken part of me, couldn't move. I placed the phone back on the counter. I didn't delete anything. I didn't confront her. Not yet, because the pain wasn't just in the betrayal, it was in the timing. She had only reached for me again after I stopped. Her sudden affection wasn't love, it was guilt, it was fear. It was a distraction from the truth she was hiding. When Emily came downstairs that evening, she was glowing. Her smile wide, her eyes bright, her hair perfectly in place. She looked radiant, and for the first time I understood. That light in her face, it wasn't for me. The perfume she wore wasn't chosen with me in mind. The happiness in her eyes wasn't born from our marriage. It was for him. That night she curled into me in bed, her voice soft, her arms sliding around my chest. "Why are you so distant, Daniel?" She whispered. I didn't answer, because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. After that day in the kitchen, everything between us shifted. Not for her. She didn't know what I had seen. But for me, I carried the weight of those messages like a secret blade pressed against my chest. Every time she touched me, I felt the sting. Every time she smiled, I saw his name written in the glow of her phone screen, but I said nothing. Instead, I let the silence grow. At dinner, I answered her questions with short phrases. When she brushed against me in the hallway, I didn't lean in like I once did. At night, when she curled closer, I stayed still. My arms didn't wrap around her automatically anymore, and she noticed. "Daniel, are you mad at me?" She asked one night, her eyes searching mine. I shook my head, offering only a faint smile. "Then why do you feel so far away?" she whispered, her hand sliding across my chest. I didn't answer. The silence unsettled her more than any angry words ever could. She grew restless, fidgeting when I stayed quiet, pacing when I ignored her attempts at closeness. One night she pressed harder. She curled up against me, her voice breaking. "I feel like you don't care anymore." I looked at her then, really looked at her. She was beautiful, vulnerable, desperate. And yet, I couldn't forget. I couldn't unsee the truth burned into my memory. Still, I said nothing, her brow furrowed, tears welling in her eyes. "Please, Daniel, talk to me. I miss you." Her voice trembled, as if the silence itself was tearing her apart, and maybe in that moment I should have spoken. Maybe I should have told her I knew. But instead, I let the quiet stretch between us, thick and suffocating, because for the first time in our marriage, she was the one begging, and I was the one refusing. It happened late one night, the kind of night when the house is too quiet, when even the walls seem to hold their breath. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, lost in the storm inside me. Emily came in slowly, her eyes red, her face pale. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Daniel," she whispered. Her voice broke on my name. I didn't respond. I just kept staring ahead, and then it spilled out. The words she had been choking on for weeks. I made a mistake. My chest tightened. My stomach dropped. Even though I already knew, hearing it spoken aloud felt like being punched in the gut. Her hands trembled as she wrung them together. I've been seeing someone. His name is Mark, but it didn't mean anything. I swear it didn't. The room tilted. My head buzzed. I gripped the edge of the mattress to steady myself. She kept talking, her words tumbling out in panicked fragments. "When you stopped trying, when you stopped reaching for me." I panicked. "I thought you didn't love me anymore. I didn't know how to get you back. I was lonely. I was scared. And Mark, he was just there." Each word was another knife. Not because of the act itself. I'd already seen the proof, but because of the realization that my love, my devotion, my endless efforts had meant so little. That the moment I stopped chasing her, she chose someone else instead of fighting for us. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the truth back in her face, to make her feel the weight of my pain. But when I looked at her broken and sobbing in front of me, all I felt was hollow. "You only wanted me when I stopped giving myself freely," I said finally, my voice low, steady. "When I stopped begging, suddenly I mattered again." Her face crumpled, her body shaking with sobs. "No, Daniel, that's not true. I love you. I've always loved you. Please, please believe me." But I couldn't. Not fully, because love without trust is just words. And words, no matter how desperate, couldn't erase what she had done. That night she clung to me, crying into my chest, begging me not to leave. And I held her. But it wasn't the same embrace anymore. It was careful, cold, guarded, because something inside me had broken, and I wasn't sure it could ever be repaired. The days after her confession felt unreal, like I was moving through fog. We didn't separate. We didn't scream or throw things. Instead, we lingered in this strange limbo where every word, every glance, was weighed down with unspoken history. Emily begged for another chance. She suggested therapy. She promised to cut all ties with Mark. She deleted numbers, blocked contacts, and swore she would do anything to fix what she had broken. And part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to cling to the comfort of what we had built together. The years of memories, the laughter, the dreams we once shared. So I agreed. We sat across from each other in a therapist's office, answering questions, digging into wounds we had never acknowledged. Emily cried often, her guilt pouring out in messy waves. I spoke less, but when I did, my words carried weight. "I can forgive," I told her once, "but I can't forget." She nodded through tears, whispering, "I know. I'll earn it back. I'll wait as long as it takes," and she tried. She reached for my hand more often. She kissed me good morning before I left for work. She left notes in my car like she used to when we were dating. Small gestures, desperate attempts to stitch the torn fabric of our marriage. But the thing about torn fabric is, even when sewn, the seam always shows. At night, when her phone buzzed, I still felt my chest tighten. When she smiled at a message, I couldn't help but wonder who it was. When she said, "I love you," I heard the echo of words she had once written to someone else. Trust, once shattered, doesn't return easily. There were moments, fleeting, fragile moments when I felt hope, when her laughter sounded genuine, when our hands fit together like they once had, when I caught her looking at me with something close to the love I remembered. But just as quickly, the doubt returned, the fracture remained, and though we were still together, something vital between us had changed forever. We weren't husband and wife in the same way anymore. We were two people clinging to the memory of what we once were, trying desperately to convince ourselves it could still be enough. I've learned something I wish I had understood years ago. Love isn't about chasing. It isn't about begging for scraps of affection or proving your worth through endless effort. Real love is given freely, without hesitation, without games. Emily begged for my attention only after I stopped giving it. But by then, something inside me had already broken. The trust that once held us together was fractured, and no amount of apologies could make it whole again. Maybe we'll heal, maybe we won't. But one thing is certain, love without trust is just an illusion. If you've ever felt ignored, betrayed, or taken for granted in love, tell me in the comments, would you stay and try again, or walk away? Don't forget to subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one.